morning. Vibes, yes, vibes. Shout out to TuneNet. Um, don't know how the quality is. Honestly, at this point, over it. I don't think it's that bad. Apparently, there's some issues with um, OBS and Streamio or Restream, whatever. Um, yeah, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. So we'll figure it out. Gonna be doing a little bit of cleanup for tinyAgent. If you don't know what tinyAgent is, it is a AI agent framework that is extremely simple, and I'll be touching up the code base today, messing around with some stuff, etc., etc. TuneNet, I got 1080p. Okay, great. Um, so yeah, let me just get started. So there's two different versions, right? There's the version that's the public version, which is the pip library, which is uploaded. You can go test it today. There's a version that is under development, which is the repository itself. You can go check it out there if you want to. And let me put it on the X stream as well. 1 second. So there's two different versions. I'm going to be doing the public version just to make sure everything's working. There's no issues. If anything, I got to touch up because I really didn't test that before I pushed it. But it should be working. So let me just get started here, actually. That's what I call this test. It worked. Thank you, TuneNets. So we're going to go to this. This is a brand new repository. Nothing has been done to this. No previous installs, etc., etc. You get the point. So I'm going to install a virtual environment so we can start fresh. Then I will activate the virtual environment. Cool. And then the command is going to be pip install tinyAgent OS. And a couple of people have reached out to me. They wanted to have it set up for UV. I definitely think that's possible. And you can also just use the complete open source package with all the code, and you can just install it yourself there. But if you want to get up and going, just pip install and you're good to go. Quit in the chat, we're so back. It was never over. Yes, sir. It was never over. All right, so I got my pip package, and I'm just gonna straight up copy the config from the example I have on the Git repo. And I'm really hoping this works because, again, I did not test this, so we'll see. Give me 1 second, actually. Let me set up my keys here off stream. Let me not put out my open router keys. Let me see. All right, bear with me here. All right, gonna go off stream real quick just to make sure that the keys aren't exposed. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, just gonna replace those really quickly. It should be good to go. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back. So you just have to go and get the API keys. This should work out of the box with Open Router. And all you need is I'll show you here. Oh, never mind. Don't want to expose my keys. But all you need really is an Open Router key and your API URL. And you can also set it up to be, you can use Olama, forget the other one, LM Studio. You can pretty much use any LLM. with the JSON parsing that I set up, in theory, you should be able to handle any response from an LLM. There's a couple of things I did there in the back end. I also have the structured outputs, but that's more for OpenAI and DeepSeek and the models that support it. Anyways, so let me jump in. I just installed the pip package. I have my config, and my environment variables should be ready to go. So let me just make a quick example here. Okay. Now, the simplest example that I have up on the, let me share this really quickly. The simple example that I have on the repo is making a function with calculations or math in general with a tool, which all it is really a function, passing that to an agent after it gets created, saying, hey, here's your tool, calculate the sum of whatever, right? So this should work. Let's see. Now we got some work to do. What time is it? Okay, we're good. So I'm going to copy paste that example. And if I run this, we should have, there's a query, I'm asking it. So validate the arguments. And it said, hey, you have an argument of 5, 3, sum is going to be 8. So it's working in perfect examples. And give me 1 second. I'm going to change the background image because I see now it might be a little bit hard to look at. So give me 1 second. Bear with me. I am updating my West term because I was looking at the stream here and it looks very dark. So I want to make sure that you can actually see the code. Let me just make it dark. And if that doesn't work, then I'll just straight up use I'll use a different ID. That should work. Give me 1 second. Getting that set up via WSO. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me just make this a bit darker. It should be good to go. Okay, much better. Let me close all these. All right, sorry about that. So it should be a little easier to see now. Let me make it a little bit more zoomed in as well, just so we can make sure you guys can see this. Okay, so run the example again just so I can make sure it's looking okay. All right, it looks okay. So as I was explaining, this is the pip package that is in the public library. So you can go install it right now if you wanted to. And all you need is a Open Router API key. And it's pretty cheap. You can get pretty far with $10, even $5 if you use the models that are open source. Obviously, if you use the OpenAI and other state-of-the-art models, it's going to cost you quite a bit. But you can get pretty far with the open source ones. So now that I got the pip package working, I'll go over really quickly, and then we'll get started on what I actually wanted to go over really quickly. Okay, so what is tinyAgent? How do I use it? Why do I care? And realistically, if you're already handling your own tooling, if you're already really deep in LLMs and making your own agents, it might not be for you. But what this is fulfilling for myself, at least, is the tooling of LLM and LLM agents. It's pretty bad. And there's libraries like LangChain and CrewAI and a bunch of other ones, right? There's hundreds of these now. The issue is that everyone's trying to solve every single problem at one time. And all I really need is the tooling to be passed to the LLM and to get out of the way. Like, I'll handle the rest. I don't really care about all these fancy things. Here's my function, take it, pass it if I need to, but a lot of times I'm just calling the tool once or twice and that's it. So what tinyAgent fulfills is the ability to create a tool and pass that to the agent immediately, right? So you don't have to go download an extra package. You don't have to go install 100 million extra tools just to run something that you need for a very specific use case. You can make it once with the tool decorator, and just like a regular Python function, you define it, give it the arguments and what it should return, and that's it. And the agent in the back end will handle the rest for you. It will try its best to take the JSON response and work the tool as it should. You can also activate the structured outputs. I can show that here. So if you do, I think it's on by default. Yeah, so you can do strict JSON, which means like, hey, I only am going to accept what I actually got back. If you set that to false, what will happen is you might get some JSON back that's a little off, but the LLM will get another call and say, hey, try to figure out this the best way possible. And surprisingly, it works a shocking amount of times, but obviously, you can't play around with this at scale. So by default, it's on true, but there's a little bit of wiggle room there. So if you wanted to, you could turn that off. And I think there's something else here regarding this. Okay, maybe it was an old iteration. But that's the basic example of what tinyAgent is and how it works. So the first part, there's two parts. The first part is the philosophy that essentially all an agent is an LLM with tooling, right? So let's see if I can make this bigger. Can I? All right. So Python function is a tool. You pass that to your agent gets your result, and you move on from there. You might chain it, you might just take the response, and that's it. But that's all I need for most of my use cases. Now, what I'm going to be testing today is what I'm calling the tiny chain, just because everyone and their mom is using that name. I was calling it orchestrator. Something about that just felt off. But there's a similar process here. You have your task. You pass that to the chain. You have maybe 7 or 10 tools that I built already internally in the library. Haven't documented that, probably should. But I got stuff like, DuckDuckGo, text browser. I also have a tool that makes Python and executes it. But you can also make your own tool inline and pass it to your chain. The chain will go in order. So let's say you want to research the latest AI developments, whatever, summarize it. The search tool will search for it. The browser tool will actually go to the site and essentially mine it or scrape it. And then your summarize tool, that's the tool you made up here, which again, all it is a decorator, a function, arguments, return. There's your tool. And immediately you can make a flow that takes two, three different tools, puts them together in a structured way, and gives you a result. As far as the result itself, it's going to give you that back depending on how you have it set up for your configurations. Structured output, but I'll eventually add something that lets you define the schema and get it back in the way you see fit. But one thing at a time, just doing this myself, doing my free time. So not don't have a ton of time, but I've managed to get this out so far. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so let me get this out of the way. Okay, so this is the example function. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. The documentation, I think, lays it out pretty well. I've got some feedback as far as the cookbook and whatnot, which I'll definitely be improving. But I think this captures the main first part of the philosophy pretty well. Two simple imports, tool, agent, boom, right? I don't think it needs to be anything more than that. So now what I'll work on is the chain. I'm not sure if the chain that I have up here is going to work in the documentation, but again, that'll be a good test. So let's call this chain example. Okay, and I will pass this to, or I'm sorry, pass this from the example. All right, it's not picking those up because it's probably in the wrong directory, but let's run this. Jeez. Bear with me 1 second. My keyboard is. All right, let me try to run this. Okay, so, okay, that makes sense. So I think I need to. Okay, so the package that I push, I don't think it's the latest one. It should have these tools internally, but let me check. Here, 1 second, I'm looking at documentation. So within tinyAgent, let me duplicate this here. So within tinyAgent, we have tools. Within tools, we have all the tools that come with the package. So let me look at actually let me start in order. Let me look at the DuckDuckGo. See what I call this. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me check the pip library and see what version I have up there. Okay, so it should be the right one. Let me just double check here. Oh, that's any agents. Sure I'm spelling that right because I've changed this a couple of times, which is probably an issue that I should handle. Yeah. I was giving this a bunch of different names and okay, 72.1. I believe that's the correct version. Give me 1 second. Let me look at my logs, see what I pushed. Here, once I'm going to show some keys here. Let me double check my logs, just make sure I'm not crazy. With me, I got my pip API key here and some other stuff here. Okay, so looks like I actually didn't put, I think it was 7.3. So classic, right? I need to actually clone the whole thing. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna wrap it up soon anyways. I appreciate everyone who pulled up. This was just more of a test to get back in the habit of streaming. I've been off for quite a bit. So I appreciate everyone who came up. Let me just do one quick check and then I'll probably end it here soon. I'll get that taken care of the next stream and we'll keep going. Yeah, thank you guys.